Gentlemen, I'm honoured to be joined with you once again. Today we're going to be talking about one of the most fun concepts I've had in my mind for a long time. That would be if I could have my ultimate passport portfolio, my ultimate diversified plan. What passports would I have in each continent? And yes, there can be multiple, of course. This is something I imagine a lot of us have been thinking about as we can't sleep at 3 a.m. It's something I thought about a lot over the past couple of years here. And honestly, they have changed a little bit, but they've stayed fairly consistent over the time that I've thought about this. And it's quite an interesting one to consider because there's always a justification that's appropriate here to talk about why you'd want to get one specific passport instead of the other one here. And to start right off, we'll start in the Western Hemisphere, in North America. If we consider the Caribbean, then there are a couple passports that I'd like there. But if we don't consider the Caribbean countries, there is not one passport in North America that I'd like. Canada, no. US, no. Mexico, no. And I do consider Mexico to be in North America. But in the Caribbean community, naturally, there are a couple of them. St. Kitts, naturally, would be a good one, or maybe St. Lucia. But honestly, a lot of people get those passports. I probably want something a little bit more niche that provides the equal benefits that are in the Caribbean community. So, maybe a country like Antigua and Barbuda, maybe, or maybe even Dominica. Dominica seems to be the most attractive one to me personally. I'm not quite sure why, but in North America, if we do consider the Caribbean to be in North America, then I would definitely go with the Dominican passport. Absolutely. And then if we go down to Central America, there's one passport here, and I'd have to have been born in this country or from this country ethnically originally to be able to maintain dual citizenship. But that would be the passport from Panama. The Panamanian passport is absolutely incredible. Not the strongest travel document in the world, but it comes with so many benefits, and frankly, it's kind of a dream passport. That's fairly difficult to get, but honestly, I'd probably do anything to get a Panamanian passport here. It's a very good passport, great country. I love Panama. I love their history. I love their architecture. There's not many bad things I can say about Panama, in honesty. So Panama in Central America is one that I definitely go for, and naturally, in South America, a lot of people say, Uruguay, Brazil. I personally wouldn't go with Brazil, in all honesty. Uruguay, maybe, but potentially not. To me, the more attractive ones would be Argentina or Chile, and I'm sort of focused a little bit more on Chile than I am on Argentina. Chile does provide a bit more travel freedoms around the world. Not that the Argentine passport is a little bit weak, but with Chile, you have access to a couple more countries, such as the US and countries like that Argentina doesn't have access to, which is why I do believe the Chilean passport is just a little bit better. But in all honesty, if I could get either one, Argentine or Chilean passport, you already know that I'd be more than honoured to qualify for either one here. But I am shifting more towards the Chilean passport. And then if we go on to the continent of Africa, honestly, in Africa, there are not many passports that are too attractive to me. The only one that I could really think about would maybe be the South African passport. The South African passport isn't the worst travel document in the world. It's not something that I'd rely on, in all honesty. Or maybe some island country, maybe Cape Verde or something like that. When we talk about African citizenship, we're not really getting any African citizenship here to expand our travel freedoms around the world, apart from, of course, living in that one country if we want to permanently. So with African passports, you can't really decide on many. Me personally, I wouldn't necessarily fight for any of these passports. Honestly, they're not really in my major priority list here. But the only two that I could really think about in Africa would either be a country like Cape Verde or South Africa. Those would be the only two options here. But that would just be pure diversification purposes. That if I just want to live in any African country, I'd probably want to either live in South Africa or Cape Verde, because I kind of like island lifestyle on it, to be honest. So those are the two options that I saw there. But in general, they're not something that I'm really excited about. And honestly, they're not the major passports that I'd like to add to my collection or anything like that. But then if we go up across the Atlantic and Mediterranean, then we get to the continent of Europe. Now, the European passports are some of the best in the world, if not the best in the world. And in all honesty, I would trade the ones that I have for some different ones. Naturally, it goes without saying, the Republic of Ireland is definitely a passport that I would love to have. The Irish passport is an absolute beautiful masterpiece. The Irish passport is waifu material, in all honesty, if we are going to be using modern internet slang. Great passport, absolutely amazing travel rights around the world, great policy in regards to getting it as well. But also there are some other passports that are fairly attractive to me. For example, this is not in the European Union, but it still have Schengen access. Maybe the Icelandic passport, to be honest, it's a bit more niche. A lot of people want the Irish passport, and I can certainly understand why, but I also kind of like the idea of going for something a little bit more niche, so maybe I'd want to do either the Irish or the Icelandic. In an ideal world, both, of course, but those are the two passports that I'd definitely be looking at in those two respective countries. I also thought about Liechtenstein in honesty, but to be honest, Liechtenstein wasn't really attractive to me, even though, again, you not an EU member, but you do have Schengen access. But for me, it would definitely be Ireland or the country of Iceland as well, maybe because their names are similar, who knows. And then if we go on to Asia, Asia is such a large continent that it almost feels wrong to put all the Asian countries of East Asia, Central Asia, and West Asia into one large group, because there are passports in each region of Asia that are fairly attractive here. Now, naturally, they do come with some issues as well. For example, South Korea isn't very attractive to me. Japan would probably be the most optimal one in East Asia, but again, they have some dual nationality issues that you can't really avoid. Some people do avoid it, some people do find loopholes, but in general, I'm just not really about that bureaucratic lifestyle here. So in East Asia, there probably isn't any passport that I'd mainly find attractive. In Central Asia, there might be a few. Maybe a country like Kyrgyzstan. Kyrgyzstan is one of those rare countries in Central Asia that does allow dual nationality, which is fairly attractive. To me, also, Kyrgyzstan has beautiful nature as well. And one that people would actually find quite surprising here, and this would only be done through the citizenship by investment method. Now, there is controversy with this. A lot of people say bad things about it, and I do. There are some cons that come with it, but I'd also say Turkey. Turkey I'd probably add to the list. Now, yes, this would probably be a bit more desirable for me than maybe the South African passport, something like that. Wouldn't be something that I'd want as my next passport or anything like that. But a Turkish passport is one that I could see providing me with some benefits in the future. You know, you have visa-free access to some pretty interesting countries with a Turkish passport that you don't really have access to regarding European Union passports for sure, you know, American passports or things like that. So the Turkish passport, while certainly not the strongest travel document in the world if you just have the regular passport, you have the green one, it's a whole other story. I love the green one, in all honesty. But if, you know, the Turkish passport regular or the special green passport here, you do have access to some countries as well that are fairly unique. You can actually have the right to live in Turkey if you want to. And then as we go down to Oceania, a lot of people would say, oh yeah, I'd love an Australian or a New Zealand passport. In all honesty, the Australian passport isn't that attractive to me. If I'd had to choose between one of the two, I'd probably go with New Zealand. In honesty, because I still have access to Australia, and you know, New Zealand doesn't seem to be as bureaucratic as Australia has been. They both did pretty bad things over the last few years regarding personal freedoms, but in general, I would personally opt for the New Zealand passport instead. But in Oceania, this is a mistake that a lot of people make. They often overlook the tiny island archipelago nations that are in Oceania, and I personally wouldn't. You know, a lot of people in the citizenship realm say bad things about Nauru. For Nauru, I'd happen to agree. But Vanuatu as well. Vanuatu is sort of the last passport I'd get. You know, if I'm like 97 years old and I just want to get another passport for the sake of it, Vanuatu would be an option that I'd go for. But there are some other passports out there in the Pacific region that are also fairly attractive to me as well. You know, for example, the Fiji passport, you know, just for the sake of having it, or maybe the Samoan passport. Now, yes, if we talk about a country like Palau, you're not really getting Palauan citizenship, so I want to maintain a level of realism here. So in honesty, in the Pacific region or in Oceania, I'd either go with New Zealand or Vanuatu, or ideally, in an ideal world, both of them. So that means that in total, this would be my ultimate citizenship diversification plan. I'd have Dominica, Panama, Chile, Iceland, Republic of Ireland, Kyrgyzstan, Turkey, New Zealand, and Vanuatu. Now that is one certainly well-diversified passport portfolio, and I do hope to make parts of it into my reality in the future. Although I think for my personal life and my personal lifestyle, there are probably some other passports that I end up getting instead of the ones I listed here, but this would be my ultimate passport portfolio plan. Let me know your ultimate passport portfolio plan list down in the comments below. I'm very curious to find out what your reasons are, which passport you'd like to get in the future, and what countries you are also looking at. Let me know down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button, be sure to subscribe to the channel as well. Hopefully see you in the next one, but until then, eternal victory to the free people.